Live. Are we live, Andrew?
We are broadcasting live.
Good morning, folks. This is Mono Council meeting of August 20th, 2024. The meeting is being conducted both in chambers and by means of electronic participation as permitted by Section 238, subsection 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and the Town of Mono Procedural Bylaw 2020-42. If you have downloaded the agenda from our website, you know how to watch this meeting either live as it occurs now or later on YouTube. We have a quorum. My name's Fred. I'm sitting in the mayor's chair today because the mayor is at a conference. The emergency exits for you people in the audience are straight behind you there or possibly out to your left. If any member of council has a pecuniary interest, you can declare it now or at any time during the meeting. And Councillor Davey, would you do the land acknowledgement, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tionatonte, the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabes peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connections of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. I have a motion that council approves the agenda of session 13-2024 as circulated. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mantlo, seconded by Councillor Davey. Any opposed? That motion's carried. Now, just while we have the agenda approved, let me explain something about it. At 10:30, council will be going in camera, and they'll do it in the following manner. I will be giving the gavel to Councillor Mantlo, if that's okay with the rest of council. I'm going to give him the chair, and I will be leaving the meeting because of an indirect conflict of interest about the item to be discussed in camera. Ralph will conduct the in-camera meeting, and at some point, when the discussion's finished, he will come out of in-camera. I'm not sure if there's going to be a motion or direction that comes out of that, Ralph, but the clerk will advise you. If there is, you'll finish that, and at that point, if you're polite, you'll give me the gavel back. You'll come and find me. I'll probably be sleeping out in my car, and I will then resume the chair and take the council immediately back in camera again, and we'll discuss the second item. So is that clear in terms of process? Everyone got that? Is council accept my decision to hand the chair to Councillor Mantlo?
Sure.
I'm doing that on the basis of seniority, as he is by far the oldest person here.
By far.
As you're pleased to mention.
I have another motion here that council approves the minutes of session 12, 2024 as circulated. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cates, seconded by Councillor Mantlo. Any opposed? Any questions? Any errors, details? Okay, that passes. Proclamations. We don't have any proclamations. We have public question period. Mr. Simpson, were there any questions submitted online?
Deputy Mayor Nix, there were 4 questions submitted online in advance, all of them from Mr. Hoseen. The first question is respecting Lloyd Armstrong Park, and he asked, can we get a proposal into council for playground equipment to make better use of this underserviced park? Many local kids are moving in with no real park that they can make access of. And I remind council that Director of Recreation did respond to a similar question a couple years ago on this topic.
And just refresh my memory, what was Kim's response?
She had noted that there were no plans to add any playground equipment. However, there is a park over on Rosemont side that is funded by Agila Tosseranio.
Oh, yes, now I remember. Well, I think my response to Anthony would be that's something we certainly could consider during budget time if there was enough demand for it, but that's, yes, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I remember the discussion, and I remember because you live contiguous to it, that, or adjacent rather, that it is a problematic park. But he does kind of have a point with respect to new people coming. Okay, but there's 2,200 houses coming down the road. Like, there is a, it is a,
Just a minute, Councillor Capes.
Microphones, please.
I think he has a point, and I think that we should look at it. Do we have the money for it? We can frankly say right off the bat, no, we don't. But that doesn't mean that it isn't actually a valid question, that even though we may have looked at it a couple of years ago, things do change, and in the interest of future growth and planning, I think it's worthwhile looking at.
Councillor Capes, did you want to say something?
Well, I'm curious about the 2,200 new homes.
Everett down the road is
Down the road, that's a long way away.
fairly. All I'm saying is that we are developing and building around here, and it may very well be a little space that could be better utilized.
I have many times offered that we should sell this property. And also, if we wanted to do anything with it, that we would take down the structure that is there and repurpose that somewhere else. And nobody uses the ball diamonds anymore. The only people that go in there are kids on dirt bikes that I chase away. And there are no kids there. And I got to tell you that the week after we moved in was the day they ripped out all of the playground equipment after I walked my children out to the end of our property to go to the park. But it was, falling apart. It was wood structures, et cetera, et cetera. And there is a playground in Rosemont subdivision, which is like 2 minutes down the road. Anybody who's going to Lloyd Armstrong is going to have to drive, because it's not in walking distance to anybody except me. And so if you're taking your kids to a park, you're going to have to drive. So driving just 1 block up and 1 block in, there's a beautiful children's park there. So that's where the kids go.
All right, can I suggest we've answered Anthony's question to the best we
Thank you.
can?
Thank you.
And we'll wait till our Director of Recreation is back to get a more complete understanding. Do we have another question, Mr. Simpson?
So the next question from the same person is, he notes that he and Councillor Mantelope spoke. However, he would looking for more input with suggestions and recommendations regarding a strategic plan on future communications and associated events for DEI.
Can you respond, Councillor Mantelope?
Yes, Anthony and I did have a rather lengthy discussion, and he had a number of suggestions which I noted down, and I'll communicate them to the DEI committee. I think he had some good ideas, and so we'll move ahead. I think that's the appropriate way to move on this. The DEI committee will consider things and then come back to council if necessary with recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Mantelope. Yes, Councillor Davey.
Mr. Hussain could always join our DEI committee too, right? And
I suggested that.
I think he's been invited.
I suggested that, and anyway.
Okay. Do we have the next question?
So the next question, again from the same individual, and he's looking for a status update on the Rogers Fusion Tech Internet installation.
Matt, can you possibly, we have no information. This is not our project. Do you have any information that you could share?
Thank you. Public Works has very limited information as far as where they're going next. All the information where they're currently working is posted on the town's website, which is, locations are in the south, unfortunately, right now. They're in the Fieldstone, Island Lake kind of area. We're issuing permits as soon as they're requested by Rogers contractor, Fusion Tech, and we'll continue to process those permits in a timely fashion. The province is pushing for dedicated locator services, which means they'll have a contractor that's dedicated to locating to expedite this process for locates so they could get the infrastructure in the ground more quickly. So we're working with that, the province and Ontario One Call to expedite that.
Thank you, Mr. Dormer. Okay, anyone on council have anything to add?
Well, just
Councillor
that
Mank.
it's very disturbing to see how long this project is being dragged out. And I recognize that you and your previous to that, Mike, had commented about what they could and couldn't do. And we're really, we don't have any say on this at all, unfortunately, except what moral suasion we can provide. And I'm wondering if the director who just spoke could get after them and indicate that the town is concerned and would like to see things move faster, and perhaps a little pressure may help.
Mr. Donor, do you have anything to say to that suggestion?
Thanks, Councillor Manktlow. I don't, we don't get a lot of feedback from Rogers. Anytime we ask for, certain documents or certain, status of the project, it's very limited feedback. I think that they're likely focusing on the most bang for their buck areas, highly populated areas that are currently underserviced with high-speed internet. And it's difficult to try to sway that.
Possibly when Mayor Creelman comes back, because he seems to have some of the better contacts with them. Maybe he can do something.
One wonders at the processes that are going on in their offices. I received a request a year and a half ago to know if I'd like to be hooked up, and I filled it out. I received the identical request again a few months back, asking to know if I'd like to be hooked up. So I'm not sure what the status of their organization is, but it's not looking as strong as I'd like to see it.
Well, you're ahead of me. I've never received a notification about being hooked up. Councillor Davy?
Thank you. No, I've never received one about getting hooked up. You live in the right part of town, higher density?
No, I'm not
But
high density. I'm just
you're closer higher to the higher density areas. They've decided to start at Highway 9 and move up. You're at 5. I'm at 25. So there's no way it's coming soon to me. We're very, but I do get solicited all the time on whether I would like a deal with Rogers, assuming that I already have it. They phone all the time. So no, they don't communicate with each other. But who else are we going to get to put it in, right? It's a monopoly. So, we can be squeaky wheels, but I think patience is what we need and that it will eventually come. I'm optimistic.
Okay, we have a presentation in 3 minutes, right? There's another question coming?
Two more questions, Deputy Mayor, both from Mr. Huzine. The first of the two of them is, can we get Public Works to put together a proposal on the costs associated to partially pave some of a roadway? This stretch of road continues to see problems heading into the winter season. Would the town of Mono help subsidize maintenance costs to vehicle repairs due to the nature of the current situation with gravel roads? Can we come up with other thoughts and ideas versus shutting this down completely?
Okay, I can partly answer that because I think we're very close to getting a report from our engineer on road conditions and what we're going to do with them. So without putting Anthony off on this question he's asked many times before, I think we should wait until we get the engineer's report on all of our roads in terms of their condition, their traffic volumes, and whether or not they deserve to have asphalt covering. Matt, do you want to expand on that or say anything else?
No, Deputy Mayor Nix, you're hit it on the head.
We got 2 minutes to go. Are there any more questions, Mr. Simpson? Yes.
Okay, so there's one more, and it states responsiveness of the bylaw officers has been poor in the town of Mono. What can be done to improve to ensure a timely response for critical bylaw infractions that need to be taken care of immediately? Is there a hotline to obtain immediate attention? For example, dogs on the loose. It takes up to X number of days to get a call returned, and by then it is too late to provide the necessary evidence that a bylaw infraction has occurred.
I can't answer that. I mean, we've certainly in the last 4 years increased our bylaw enforcement enormously. We have 2 part-time bylaw officers. I don't know what else we can do. Is there anyone either on council or staff that can respond to this question? Oh, Councillor Capes?
I have not heard from anybody else that our bylaw officer response is poor. So unless we have evidence of that, how would we know?
Councillor Davy?
I want to remind Mr. Hussein, I know the whole immediate thing is the thrust of the question, but that for our tracking and for our being able to decide and getting feedback and so on, your complaint needs to go online with your name on our form. And I don't think that bylaws who you call for the dogs. I think if you got a dog problem, you call our dog management people, whose name escapes me. Fred?
Yeah. Sorry.
So yes, our canine control is contracted out. That phone number is on our website. The agreement for that says that they need to be available to pick up stray dogs between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekends and holidays. And while I understand that the response can sometimes take several hours, that is a level of service that council is been willing to provide.
Okay, I'm going to, there might be questions from the audience. We haven't quite finished with public question period, but I'm going to end it right now. We have a presentation that should have started 2 minutes ago. If there are public questions after that point, we can take public questions from the audience. We have Michelle Steele from RLB with us today. Good morning, Michelle. And you have a presentation, which I assume, we have it on our laptops, but I assume, yes, here it comes. So if you'd like to start at any time, Michelle, go right ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Can I just click through on this? Okay, excellent. Oh, that matters. Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm Michelle Steele from RLB. We are your auditing firm. So we conducted the audit towards the end of March, early April. So I wanted to thank Les and his team. The audit went very smoothly this year. There we go. So just a quick agenda of what we're going to go over today. So just an overview of the audit, the actual audit report. We'll go through the financial statements and then just a summary of what next steps would be. So an audit overview. So our final materiality for the audit was $625,000. So that's the financial statements as a whole. So any of our individual testing is at significantly smaller thresholds, but that's our financial statement as a whole materiality. So we did send a audit planning letter to council last fall, so that there haven't been any changes to any of the audit areas that we mentioned, any of the planned procedures since we sent that letter. So we wanted to highlight that piece. So going through our audit, we didn't have any significant internal control deficiencies. So there was a management letter that we will send every year. Just because we do review your internal controls, we do test them. So there was no issues throughout our testing. If there are any suggestions, we would include that in the management letter. But this year there was no issues or suggestions that came out of that.
Nobody's hand was in the cookie jar.
Not through our testing. So there's no known independent issues as well. You will see that in our audit report, but we like to highlight that point as well. And then just a summary, there was 16 adjusting entries that we posted. Again, the majority were the tangible capital assets. So we would record your tangible capital asset activity that came after the audit started. And then we do consolidate some of the shared boards. So those entries were posted. And then some additional entries to record your reserve activity. Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What do you mean by an adjustment?
Adjustment. So we would record an entry.
You disagree with the information?
I would say it would just be more information that came after we started. So we take your initial trial balance when we start the audit, and then if there's any additional information or balances that need to change, we would record those as adjusting entries. As in your tangible capital assets, those came after. So then most of those in your expense accounts, we move those up to capital assets. We would record your amortization, all of that based on the schedules that we received.
Okay.
Updates rather than like as
So you do have a copy of the consolidated financial statements, but I just, essentially the presentation has snippets of it, so I'll just kind of hit the main points, but if there's anything actual in the statements, I can jump to that as well. So our audit report, it'd be the same opinion that you would have received last year. It's what we call our clean opinion or unmodified opinion. So essentially it says that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the organization. And then we say that our audit was conducted in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. That's kind of just a synopsis of it, but same as last year. And then going through the actual statements, the first statement is the statement of financial position. So this is the organization as at December 31st. This would be your balance sheet if you're in the for-profit world. So kind of the key areas we look at here are the cash equivalents, your taxes receivable, your tangible capital assets, and then your accumulated surplus. So there's a snip there. It's kind of small, but you should be able to see it. So I'll just go over the main variances. Essentially, there's a column for 2023 with comparatives to last year. Starting at the top, your financial assets, you'll see the cash balance has decreased about $350,000. There is a cash flow statement we'll look at shortly. Accounts receivable has increased $340,000, and that's primarily there's additional receivables in there for capital tangible asset. There was grant funding that you received for the fiscal year that hadn't all been received yet as of the end of the year, so that's sitting in your accounts receivable. There's about $380,000 receivable, so that accounts for the majority of the increase. Your taxes receivable have increased about $510,000, and that's primarily in the current and 1 year outstanding balances.
Yeah, go ahead.
Two questions, I guess, for Les. Why is our taxes receivable so they're twice what they were last year?
I really don't have an actual answer for you, Counselor. I think just the general economy has caught up with people, the inflation, and people are struggling to make ends meet. I mean, we haven't changed any practices. When a property goes into 3 years of arrears, we start the tax sale process. We have been pretty successful in people making arrangements to pay, but I think just the economy has caught up.
So there's no changes in the dates or anything? This is a real number?
We haven't changed any processes or anything like that.
Okay. My other question is, could you remind us why, what happened to our investments? They're down $1 million.
Well, if council recalls, we over the last 2-3 budgets, we've been dipping into our reserves, and when we dip into our reserves, I'm drawing that. I mean, I have the reserves invested, so when we draw on reserves, I have to cash that investment in. So on average, it's been around $1 million per year the last 3 years.
Right. So it's a reserve change. I recognize that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Capes?
Further to Councillor Mankelow's question, in the statements, note 9 talks about risk and tax receivables, and I was curious about how much we have sitting in the 1 to 2 year category. Like, we let people go for 1 to 2 years without paying their taxes? Like, I was just curious because, you know, the regular, you know, up to 90 days, up to 120 days, and then I see 1 to 2 years, and I went, what? Anyway, just a curiosity.
The bulk of our tax receivables are in the first and second year because they're more recent. So
Okay.
I would say like 3/4 of our tax years are in the first couple of years, and then there's a third and fourth year. We don't we don't get into the fourth year because by then we're into the tax collection process.
Right, so as you said, there's no change to process. That's what it's been in the past. Yeah, okay, thanks, Les.
And as I know from personal experience, if you are late on your taxes, the town assesses you an interest penalty. Thanks, Les, it's okay. You continue, Michelle.
And then to just add on to that, you will see we have a graph shortly in the presentation, the taxes receivable. That's been consistent with most municipalities that we have been presenting at, that just an increase in taxes receivable as a whole. And again, it's that current kind of 1 year outstanding balances have increased. It's just been a trend we've been seeing across the board in the this year and last year a little bit as well. So investments, we've already discussed that, so down $1 million, which is some GICs maturing. And then you'll see in liabilities, your accounts payable and accrued liabilities, so that's down about $480,000. About 300,000 of that's just timing, so in fiscal 2022, there's additional tangible capital asset accruals at year end that hadn't been paid yet, so it's kind of skewing it there just based on timing. Deferred revenue, so your deferred revenue, that's your obligatory reserve funds and then any deferred revenue, so that's down about $200,000. You'll see we do get to a note on that, but gas tax is down about $156,000, so that's the majority of the decrease. And then if we take your financial assets minus your liabilities, that gives you that net financial asset. There's a schedule on that shortly, so I wanted to point out that dollar value. And then the non-financial assets at the bottom, you'll see the first line, your tangible capital assets, they're actually up, $350,000. There's about 2.2 million of capital asset additions, net of your amortization expense of about 1.8 million. And then inventory and prepaid are consistent with the year before. So you'll see that accumulated surplus balance at the bottom, the 74 million. You will see that on the next couple schedules as well to all reconcile to that. So just
Could I just ask a
go
question there, probably to Les or Matt? On tangible capital assets, is this engineering study that we're going to, that is almost complete, will it change any of the values in terms of what our road network either cost or what it's valued at? Do we know that? Does it affect this number?
Matt could correct me. I believe what Burnsides is doing for us is determining the cost of roads that council should put money into versus the value of it. Our
Versus
asset
the value.
management
Oh,
study did the values.
Okay. That's fine, that was my question.
Then just a few graphs from the statement of financial position. So the first one here is cash equivalents. So this graph takes your cash equivalents as a percentage of your annual cash outflow. So your operating expenses, net of the amortization, and then we add in your capital asset addition, so the actual outflows for the year. You'll see the 5 years, and then I'm going to call it the green or turquoise box is showing your cash equivalent, so your cash plus your investments. That's about the $12 million you saw on the previous page, and then the little bit of orange up above was your cash outflow. So if you look at your expenses plus capital asset additions, it's just under 14 million. And then there's the green line that goes through it, so that's showing what the trend is for Mono, and then the blue is our average. So again, if you look at 2023 versus 2022, everything's pretty comparable to the prior year. Again, that those bars are going to change based on your tangible capital asset activity if it's varying significantly year to year, and it hasn't been the last 2 years. And then the next graph, this is your taxes receivable. So we take your taxes receivable as a whole as a percentage of your total tax revenue. So we're doing that just to make the municipalities comparable to each other. So that's how we can show green is the town of Mono, so you're at 12%, and then we take our average RLB clients. So I think we have 10 municipal clients that we average. They're at about 8.4.
So just to comment on that, Michelle, the fact that our taxes receivable are about 50% higher than the average of the other municipalities, 12% versus 8%, is that worrisome? I mean, are we not?
Well, you guys have the same policy as I think everything's outstanding 3 years, then you can go and do the lien, the tax process there. So it's just those 2 years. So it is eating up some of your cash flow.
But it's
again,
a bit worrisome that we're that much above your average client. We're over 12%.
Yeah, so the average client, it's just, it's taking average. So it's, there's kind of more to it on other components of it. But from this standpoint, your taxes receivable would be higher.
So Les should be cracking the whip a bit harder, right? Right, Les? Yes, Councillor Cates.
So that's very interesting. And so do you know within the blue line how many of those are like equivalent to a mono in composition, rural versus urban, and where it is? And do you know any more? Like, I don't know what the
So they'd all
comparator
be
group
County of
is.
Dufferin, County of Wellington.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's
so we only,
Dufferin,
we would all do
Wellington.
local ones within this area.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So it's comparable.
Yeah.
Councillor Manklow?
Les, could you remind us what interest rate we charge on outstanding taxes?
It's 15% per year, so 1.25% per month. If I could just jump in, Councillor Capesat had a really good question versus rural versus urban tax arrears. Generally, urban centers, like say the town of Orangeville, Shelburne, or wherever, they have a better rate of collection. It's just the nature of the beast. Whereas a municipality with more rural properties, the tax rate is a little higher. Overall, we're at a moderate rate versus low tax arrears.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, any other questions? Okay, Michelle, you continue.
Thank you. Okay, and then the next three graphs are with respect to your tangible capital assets. So this graph takes your capital asset additions for the current year as a percentage of your total tax revenue. And then you'll see the green again is Town of Mono, and the blue is the average of our other municipal clients. So again, it depends on your capital additions each year based on what actually happens versus what you're budgeting, and then just based on your tangible capital asset needs. So you'll see there was a big jump in 2020, and then it's gone down slightly the last couple years.
But if I could ask a question, what that, and I know this is a simplistic view, Les, but what that seems to say to me, compared to the average, Mono is not replacing as much of their capital as other municipalities. We're only spending 24% of our tax revenue on replacing capital. Other municipalities are spending 60%. Why do we have less capital to replace, or why are we so far below the average?
I think the last 2-3 budgets have been very difficult. Council has tried to keep that tax rate increase, as low as possible. So we're not putting money into our infrastructure like other municipalities are. We're very concerned about the impact of a high tax rate or a higher tax rate.
But it seems to me then we're building up problems for the future.
Yes.
Oh, okay, just maybe this is a forewarning to budget time for later on. Mike.
You also recall that, we're almost every other year with major capital expenses. The 2020 would have been definitely some vehicles and some water main expenditures as well. You will see a bridge, $1.8 million impact to this graph, would show an upward trend, provided you keep your level of service at the same level and you don't start to cut that, right? So you will see spikes and balances in ours. And we've been delaying and pushing these assets to their useful life as far as we can. But there is coming a time where there will be requirements, and Matt and Les and everybody will put those towards you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Mangtone?
Michelle, is there a level of capital additions as a percent of tax revenue, which over many, many years, which you consider to be optimum for a municipality our size?
We couldn't really comment on that. I think it would be based more on your asset needs study that you're getting done by your engineers, right? Like what assets do you need to replace? What assets need maintained? That would be more, I think, what I'd be paying attention to versus what you're actually spending.
So why show us this grant if there's this graph?
It's just showing the trend over the last 5 years of your capital asset additions versus other municipalities.
So I'm not too sure how to make any conclusions from it. Do you have any conclusions?
No. We can't conclude on that's more of an engineering question on what your capital assets are, what you need as capital assets. We just like to show the trend with the spending because the financial statements are just showing 2 years. This is just showing over the last 5 years what's being invested in your tangible capital assets.
And if you compare yourself to others, you may become vain and bitter.
Or proud and puffed up?
No.
I think, though, as Les and Mike have suggested, there maybe is something in this chart which we are not replacing some of our capital assets maybe quite as fast as we should be, and we've got that Huron-Ontario bridge coming up, which is, anyway, okay, enough said. I still think that the chart gives us some information. Ralph. Michelle, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, did you have a question? Oh, Mike, sorry.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I think this is a good representation of where council's been going.
Yes.
Staff has recommended staff increases, and council has provided a budget that's very acceptable to the residents of Mono. Staff have pushed their assets along as far as we possibly can and stretched out our useful lives. And there will be steeper declines when we don't meet the tax rate, the tax or the increased suggestion that staff is asking council for. But there will come a point, as you've noted, there will come a point when we need. So I think it's a great representation to show that we've been fiscally responsible on our expenditures. But I think our peaks and valleys in Mono will be higher than what maybe your average clients are showing, because one large scale project or multiple vehicles in 1 year raise above the $1 million mark, and you will have a steep incline that you'll be required to deal with at budget time.
Councillor Davy?
Thank you. And so looking at this, it would be nice to have 10 years instead of just 5. But to show that the average seems to, we got up, we go down, we go up, we go down, but we're in that same range, whereas Mono has not done that, right? It's gone way up and then it's coming down. And so the next couple of years, are we going to keep going down or how, right?
I suspect we're going up, but, all right. All preparatory for our budget discussions this fall. Yes. Michelle, go ahead.
And then this next graph with respect to tangible capital assets. So you'll see there's, again, the 5 years. Blue is your actual capital asset additions for the year. The green is what the budgeted additions were for the year. And then I'm going to call it the orange, was your amortization. So just, again, with the budget, so you'll see, I guess in all but 1 year, the blue, so your actual capital asset additions are below your budget. So sometimes if projects don't happen, those get pushed to the next year, right? So some years could include the same project. I wanted to point that out. But again, your capital asset additions, the blue bar is higher than your amortization. So again, your amortizing is based on the historical cost, where blue is what the current capital asset additions cost would be. So that is a positive trend. We want to see the blue bar above the orange. So you are constantly reinvesting in your infrastructure. Yeah. We can't comment on what your future needs would be, but that is always a positive thing. If we see the reverse of that, that's usually where there's some concern, right? You're not even keeping up with that. You want to make sure the blue is always above the orange.
Except the problem is, I mean, I agree with what you said, but the problem is amortization is based on historical costs. And we know darn well that blue bar maybe should be twice as high as the orange bar, because when we replace these assets, they certainly cost a lot more money than they did when we put them in the first place. Any questions on this chart? Okay, Michelle.
One more chart on tangible capital assets. So this chart is showing your capital assets by funding source. So again, you'll see the 5 years. So green is your obligatory reserve fund. So that's your DCs, that's your gas tax, right? Those are the externally funded. I'm going to call it the teal bar. Those are your actual reserve funds. Orange is levies, and then the purple is grants. So you'll see there's a significant purple portion this year. So you did receive capital funding, right, for the tennis court. So that was significant capital funding this year. So. And we don't see a lot of purple, I'm going to say, across all our municipalities, so that is positive for you guys this year. So I wanted to point out that piece. Okay, so we're done with the statement of financial position. So the next statement is your statement of operations. So this reports your revenue less your expenses, gives you your annual surplus, and then the key components are, budget to actual results, your expenditures by department, and then your annual surplus. So again, there's a snippet of your statement of operations. So 3 columns. The first one is your 2023 budget. So this is the budget on the accrual basis. So Les takes your budget on the cash basis that you would do through year, and then we do the conversion to the accrual basis. So that's when you incorporate, you pull out the capital asset additions because they're an outflow, and you add in amortization are kind of the main pieces. We have your 2023 actuals and then comparatives to last year. So the top of the page are your revenue. So overall revenue is up about 2% from last year, so fairly consistent overall. But the main changes, you'll see fees and user charges, that's up about $110,000, and that's primarily your Parks and Rec. Revenue was up. There was some donations that you received for the Mono Center tennis court, so that's what's included in that line item. Ontario grants, as we just saw, is up about $445,000. Again, it's primarily the Trillium funding, and then there was the federal and provincial funding that you received for the tennis courts. Other income has increased about $200,000 from last year, and that's primarily the investment income on your investments that we saw in the statement of financial position. And then the obligatory reserve fund revenue, so that's the spending of your gas tax development charges. That's gone down about 880,000 from last year. Again, that's just timing on when you spend those funds. But the largest decrease, there was additional development charge spending in fiscal 2022. That's the variance there. And then if you look at expenses in the middle of the page, they're up about 5% from last year. And then the main variances you'll see in protection and services, that's up about $290,000. The majority of that increase is the fire contracted services, that's up about $180,000. Transportation services, it's up about 150, so not a lot overall. The largest change there is just increased wages and increased some material charges. And then everything else is pretty consistent other than planning and development. The last line there, that's up $125,000. And there were some OLT hearings and appeals, so just an increased legal costs this year, which you're aware of.
Can I just, while we're on this page then, ask a question? And it may not make a lot of sense, Les, but we had anticipated in our operating budget a loss of 181,000 last year. It turns out by the time we're finished, we've got a surplus of 413,000. Now, when you start the budget for 2025, you will, my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, you will start knowing that we had a surplus of 413,000. That'll be built into our 2025 budget, correct?
Well, when we look at our budget for, to set the tax rate, it's actually a cash budget. So the surplus deficit on that budget is different than in the financial statements. In the financial statements, this includes everything, waterworks, so there's water put in there.
All right.
So it's not going to be the same number.
All right. Then I won't ask the rest of my question.
Because it's also, like Michelle says, is influenced by using our development charges and that. It's not the same surplus for budgeting.
Okay. Any questions from council? Okay, Michelle?
Okay, just to finish off the statement, you take your total revenue minus your total expenses, and that gives you the annual surplus you had mentioned of the $413,000. It gets added to the accumulated surplus beginning of the year, which was last year's closing, and then that accumulated surplus is what you saw in the statement of financial position, and you'll see it when we get to Schedule 3.
If I could just add one more comment. In the past, when PSAP first started, there was some confusion with the word surplus. So surplus it's generally the equity of the town. So that surplus of 413 also includes money that we put into reserve, which I do not use as an income on the cash budget. So for example, we put over $200,000 into the Public Works Equipment Reserve. So that's what built up that 413 surplus. It's really building up an asset as well.
Okay.
So it's not like a cash surplus,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Thank you, Les. All right.
So there's just a couple graphs for the statement of operations. The first one here is expenditures by department, so as a pie chart. You will see the biggest components, again, are the gray, the transportation, and the orange, the protection services. And then the next chart does that same piece as a percentage, but just comparative to the last 5 years. Again, your spending is pretty consistent year to year based on the department allocation, but we do just kind of find those helpful to point out as well.
Why do you use different colors?
Colors are supposed to tie to the previous graph, but if you're not showing it
No,
as
I
I
know
have
it,
it kind of all in one, but yeah.
Transportation was gray on the pie
Yeah,
chart.
so
and
it's just
down
how
here,
it's
so
tying.
it's okay, it's just that.
Okay, so the next statement is this statement of changes in net financial assets. So this was the balance I pointed out on the statement of financial position. So it takes your annual surplus from the previous statement, and then essentially it removes the tangible capital asset activity. Show you here. And so kind of all of that combined, there is an increase in your net financial asset. It takes balance beginning of the year, which was last year's closing, and then the net financial asset ending of the year. So again, that ties back to your statement of financial position. So just a really quick reconciliation. And then the statement of cash flow essentially it'll just show how the cash changed in the year, and it breaks it down between the buckets of operating, investing. So again, your statement of cash flow, it takes your annual surplus from the statement of operation, and then it adds back anything that wasn't an actual cash outflow, right? So amortization is the main piece. And then it accounts for any changes in the non-cash working capital, so how accounts receivable and how accounts payable changes in the year and how that affects your cash. It'll deduct your acquisition of tangible capital assets, because that's an actual cash outflow, and then adds back the decrease in investments, right? Because that's cash coming into the organization. So kind of all of that combined, there was a decrease in cash of about $350,000. It gets added to cash beginning of the year, which was last year's closing, and then that's how your cash balance for the statement of financial position was calculated. And then the last schedule, which ties to what Les was talking about, your accumulated surplus. So it shows the various components of it. It's probably easier if I just show it here. So the top shows your actual surpluses, so invested in tangible capital assets. You don't have any long-term debt, so that is just your tangible capital asset value. If you had financed any of your tangible capital asset, that would be deducted from your tangible capital asset surplus. The current fund, which is the remainder of the change in the year from your annual surplus. And then you'll see your reserve fund balances, overall fairly consistent with the year before, and then your reserves. You'll see changes between the various categories, but overall your reserve balance is pretty consistent with the prior year as well. And then those three buckets combined is what your accumulated surplus that you saw in the statement of operations and the statement of financial position reconciles to. And there's just a few more graphs that tie to that. The first one talks about your deferred revenue. So the deferred revenue essentially includes your obligatory reserve fund. So anything externally restricted or any revenue that had been received in the year that hadn't been spent yet, that will be spent in the next fiscal year. So this is financial statement note 3, but we have a snip here that's just showing the obligatory reserve funds. Again, the kind of biggest change is your gas tax. If we look at the opening versus the closing, it's down about $150,000. And then the ending for the year, the $5.3 million, is what you saw back on the statement of financial position. And then the last graph shows your reserves and reserve.
Michelle, we have a question.
I'm sorry to take you backwards to what is page 21, but the schedule of accumulated surplus. I want to understand what the baseball fund is and what the Godfrey Sidewalk Fund is. I don't know what those
No,
are.
I don't either.
Thank you, Les.
That's going back into history, Counselor. The baseball, at one time we had a quite active baseball program, and the program developed at the end of the year, I guess, a positive surplus, and then it ended. So I just put that money one day, maybe if it got going again, there's a little bit of money in the baseball fund.
Okay.
The sidewalk has to do with Purple Hill. It's Ironwood Court. At that time, I'm not sure if there's sidewalks there right now, but the developer provided Mono with an amount of money to put sidewalks in instead of putting them in himself. So we took the money, and then I have that in the reserve, and it's been there since Iron Court's been built, so for quite a long time. And then it just increases year to year just on bank interest.
Okay, thank you, Les. I don't know why I never noticed those before, but they popped out at me and I went, oh. Anyway, thank you. That's very good information for the next budget conversation.
Councillor Mantlo?
This is a question for Les, please. We have a fairly healthy water capital reserve. Can you just refresh my memory about what we use that water reserve for?
Well, if you recall, Counselor, Mike was quite successful in obtaining a grant for the arsenic remediation program, and we have to contribute our portion. So bulk of that reserve will be used towards that. So about our share is about 1.2 million.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Michelle?
I'm just going to jump ahead to the last chart here. So again, this shows that your reserves and reserve funds, which we just saw on Schedule 3, as a percentage of your total tax revenue. Again, just to normalize them so we can do comparatives. So you'll see they are, I'm going to say, fairly comparable to our other municipalities. Again, they kind of go below in 2021, but these again will vary based on your investments into your tangible capital assets each year. So
Now, and is the fact that our reserve and reserve funds as a percent of total tax revenue is declining over the last 5 years? This is, again, back to how council has been treating budgets for the last few years? Is that what we're looking at here?
You are absolutely correct, Deputy Mayor. If you recall, anytime there was a reserve contribution, it was eliminated. So the contributions have been coming down.
We've been stealing from, but yes, okay, thank you. Okay, Michelle?
So that was the end of the presentation. So next steps, it's up to council to approve the financial statements. If they are approved, I have a letter I can get Les to sign. Once we get that signed letter, I can get the final package prepared, and then it's the financial information return. We have drafted, Les has reviewed, so we're just kind of working on some last pieces there, but once the statements are approved, we can get the financial information return submitted to the ministry. So those are kind of the last two pieces there. And that is it. I think we've kind of hit questions throughout, but
You've had the questions.
no, I think that's more valuable.
Councillor Cates?
This is not a question. This is a congratulations to staff for a good audit and for there not being any fingers in the cookie jar, as the deputy mayor so puts it, but that we have good internal controls, and I really appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you for all the hard work that I know an audit takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and I really appreciate that out of this audit, we have a very good audit and that staff have done a great job, so thank you.
That wasn't quite a question, but it was nicely said.
Well said, I agree.
Anyone else on council? We've asked questions as we've gone along, so we're probably, the barrel's empty. All right, Michelle, thank you very much. I have a motion here when you're finished, but I appreciate your presentation. I think we're done. Thank you.
Great presentation.
So I have a motion that we approve the 2023 consolidated financial statements provided by RLB Chartered Accountants. Do I have a mover? Capes and Davy. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Now, I had said, because I cut off public question period to have that presentation at 9:15. Is there anyone in the audience who had questions? Yes, Elaine.
Good morning, Elaine Kehoe, 388-193 Mono Center Road. First question is, we've had a number of power outages in Mono. I mean, a substantial number, and it's not winter. Does anyone know the reasons why? Because it is causing havoc on computers. You know, when the power goes out, does the power surge? Does anyone know the reason why?
I don't have an answer. Does Public Works, do you have any information? Are we having trees falling down, or do you know what the issue is?
Thank you. Not to my knowledge, we have had a lot of wild storms this summer, a lot of deluge rains, and so I don't know if it's associated with that. That's the only thing that could come to my mind right now.
Councillor Cates.
Is weather.
So that is Hydro's business, not that we're not worried about it. I live in a rural area and the power's going out, so we're getting a generator, okay? However, I know what happens to the trees on our property, and Hydro is about 2 years behind in trimming trees from the wires. And I know this because they come and trim the trees in front of our house that are close to those wires, and I know that they didn't get to them last year, and now they're catching up. So they're out there now trimming the branches that are growing into the wires, so that hopefully when we get storms, you know, and especially I know, like at our property, they've really cut back the willows because they're the ones that are the worst offenders. But I know they're out there because they just did our trees. So that will help for sure. But that's pretty much it. And there's no accounting for people hitting poles and knocking poles out. There's no accounting for transformers going out, which shuts out a whole block of area. But it's Hydro who knows why and what is happening. So you have the number to call to say you're out, and then they give you the text back to say, yeah, we'll be there in an hour, and then 2 days later you get your power back. But anyway, Hydro is out there working on
Anybody
helping.
else on council have anything to add? Yes, Councillor Davy.
Yeah, a generator solves all your problems. I didn't know that, that I know that there's been storms. We've had, this has been a record year of rain, but I have a generator just kicks in and, you know. So, but I also do get notices from Hydro, but I've never, so, and I find that a good service. It's on your phone. It gives you, even if you're out of town, you know that the power's gone out in your area. But I haven't done the follow-up. Have you tried to follow
I
up with them?
have.
And you get nowhere?
You get nowhere.
Okay.
Any further questions? Elaine?
Yes. Has BTC paid the parkland levies that was levied against them?
Well, I can't answer that, and if I could, I wouldn't, but I'll return it over to Les. Has BTC paid the Parkland levy? Yes.
And where has that money been allocated to?
Well, it has to go into a reserve for Parkland.
Oh, I'm just confirming that. Okay,
It absolutely has to.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the gallery that has a public question? Seeing none, we can move on.
Somebody online?
Oh, where? Oh, yeah. Who's CS? Oh, council. All right, so.
That's Andrew, so it's not.
And Andrew. So we've dealt with public questions. Now we'll move on to unfinished business and deferred items. The first one is unfinished council business, August 20th, 2024. Does anyone on council have a comment or a question? Councillor Capes.
Thank you. A question as to why we have two number 19s. You might have answered that for me before.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Any other questions from council on
There's one more.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
If I could. I'm just wondering about this backyard chicken bylaw. Where is it now? I need a reminder.
So there's a draft prepared, and we would bring that forward to council. And as per your next item on the agenda, council would choose the level of residential interaction.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would just like to add a comment. When I looked at it, I don't have a specific question, but I'm impressed by the number of items that you think we can get done by the third or fourth quarter of 2024. And quite frankly, I wonder if you're not being a bit optimistic, Mr. Simpson. You stand by this chart in terms of when you think these things will be done?
As I like to remind council, every time we make those estimates, they're made 6 or 8 months in advance, and what occurs during those 6 or 8 months impacts those. So those dates haven't been updated since spring, and they may no longer be reflective of what council is going to see when.
Could I ask then that in our next council meeting, when you prepare this chart, could you update? I get questions from some of our residents as to when we're going to get something done, and of course I rely on this chart, and then I look foolish because we don't get it done on time. This isn't a real criticism, Fred. I know how overburdened you are, but could you update those estimated finish dates for us? All right, anybody else on council questions about? Okay. Move on to, just a minute, just having a little trouble with the cursor. We're moving on to levels of public consultation when passing bylaws. Mr. Simpson, did you want to comment on that? Very good report, by the way. Did you want to add anything to what you've said in your report?
No, I just want to point out, as directed by council when this came before them for their initial review, the 2 changes that were requested have been incorporated into today's draft, and there have been no other changes made from what council saw previously.
Anybody on council with a question? Yes.
Thank you. So I appreciate that we are strengthening our existing structures and making them more stable and just. That is a statement that I think is something we should do. We should have a goal of doing that, and I think this is great. I wasn't part of the conversation, I'm sorry, but did we review this whole engagement charter, yes or no? It's coming, excellent, that's all I need to know. Perfect, because
No,
it does
no,
need to be reviewed.
I've actually goofed. I should have put the motion on the floor before I took questions.
Oh,
I ha-
sorry.
Yeah, no, that was my fault. I have a motion that we amend the Citizen Engagement Charter by adding a new appendix titled Levels of Public Consultation When Passing Bylaws. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mankelow, seconder, Councillor Davy. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Now I can ask if there's any.
So I can ask my next question?
Yes, go
Well,
ahead.
thank you very much. So, and to that, I just want to say that with our DEI lens on, we need to have consideration for who we serve and how that might influence that engagement charter fully. So I'm just going to say that.
Anybody else with comments? Yes, Councillor Davy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So what we're approving or what we're voting on now is that there is this new itemized, should have always been there, so I'm glad it's there now. This is how we're going to do things, and as referenced by the CAO, that we do have a bylaw that, and to answer your questions of the Q4, Q2, 2026, whenever things get done, adding in this public thing is really important. But but what we're doing is we're appending it in the interest of getting the ball moving. We're appending it to a outdated engagement, and so that
Yes.
will be coming. But I am loath to add something directly onto this list because it will go onto the list too soon. But I am hopeful that that will be brought
So
soon.
you're waiting until we review the charter?
Well, no, waiting to add reviewing the charter to the list.
Oh, I see, okay.
Right, because that's the way it's going to happen.
We're not doing that today.
No,
So we're not going to do it today, but it is coming
coming.
down the
Yeah,
pipe
yeah.
because the charter was terrific, but it was pre-COVID, which, i.e. pre our Zoom world and everything. And so many items that the charter wanted to achieve have been achieved. So now we need to switch, and DEI is one of the perfect examples.
right.
But there's lots of lots of
Yes,
things that
that's
should go
great.
in it.
Thank you.
all right, we've passed the motion, so we can move on to the next item, which is the Hockley Hall and Church. I guess I should read the motion first, and then we can have questions, and maybe, I don't know if we have someone from the audience who wants to speak to this, but, yeah, we can do that if we do. Here's the motion. That we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to designate Hockley Historic Community Hall and Church, municipally known as 994174 Mono-Adjala Townline, in the town of Mono, under the Ontario Heritage Act, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? Councillor Capes, secondary, Councillor Mankelow. Anyone opposed to that motion? Yes, Mr. Simpson.
Deputy Mayor, if you just want to leave the question on the floor during the conversation, just in case council does want to make a change based on
Oh,
the
okay.
conversation.
Okay, the motion's on the floor. I'll take questions now. Sorry, Fred, I sometimes get befuddled at my great age. Any questions or comments from the council or maybe even the audience on this particular item?
From the Heritage Committee,
Yeah.
Barbara Jafflis is here.
Yeah, I know she is. Do you want to speak to this or no? Okay, anyone on council?
No, I'm ready to vote.
All right, now, Mr. Simpson, can we vote on the issue?
Before we vote, can I ask for a point of clarification? I know. Can I vote?
Go
Can I-
ahead, go ahead.
So this is terrific. We're going to designate it. It's an awesome thing and everything, but it's on as an item.
Different.
It's on our list with respect to discussing the future of it and the funding of
Yes.
it and all that kind of a
Two
thing.
separate
But
items.
that's a
Yes,
separate-
I appreciate that they're separate. Let me ask my clarification thing. The idea that, is there any way that doing this would be a negative to helping our discussions with our neighboring, because we haven't had discussions yet, but anyway, I just posed the question to the CAO. Are there any thoughts on it, just so that we cross all the Ts?
Does Mike want to address that question?
I'll let the clerk speak to whether there's a negativity to designation. It does protect an old structure for a very long time. I'm not sure of the limitations that puts on, but for the property as a whole. Just to remind council, conversations with the mayor and the then CAO of Adjala did occur. Unfortunately, that CAO position was vacant, was vacant, and I understand that there's a interim CAO put into place right now. That was a week or so ago, so new discussions will probably happen with that CAO. But we have been assessing what the town's position on those structures would be.
So just, you don't think it's negative, is my question.
Councillor Capes, you had a question?
Just so that we're all aware, the group that actually manages this now sought this. They want this designation. They came to us
Yes.
and approached us to put this designation forward. So, just so we all know that.
Yes, but is it not that they also are looking for getting out of being responsible for it?
We had a delegation from them to look for alternatives, that's true, and there's conversation, but this does not, as I said, they're two separate items, and I do not believe that the designation actually has any impact on what gets decided going forward.
They don't really need.
I can tell you that staff will not be coming back with a recommendation to remove the buildings from the site. Like, it will not be a staff recommendation. We appreciate the heritage, we
Yeah.
appreciate the age, we appreciate, the heritage of that village, and that will not be one of the recommendations. And that really is, it's designated and set in perpetuity now. And it is an old structure, and the church being more representative of one of the older structures for sure, with the hall being looking up to date, but you get inside the bones, and it's a very heritage structure. So that will not, and I clarify, will not be a recommendation of staff as an option for council to move forward. Nor do I think the Hockley community or the volunteers that run it right now.
Thank you.
That's why they want it designated.
Yeah.
I was almost going to say you don't need a mayor sitting here. No one's asked if they could speak, but Councillor Manklow has put up his hand and asked, and I appreciate that, Councillor Manklow.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Well, I think it's an important question that Councillor Davies has brought up, and the answer is that no, and in fact, it's an advantage to be designated, I think.
And that comes from a person whose house has been designated. Okay. Any more comments on this item before have we voted on the issue? No, we haven't. Anyone opposed to the motion on the floor? The hall and the church are designated. Now, how are we doing for time? Our lawyer's going to be here in 24 minutes.
Doing a good job,
Yeah, I just got to
even
get.
though we're unruly.
All right, our next item, now that I'm back on the top of the agenda, is the removal of the Mono-Adjala Townline house at 994192 from the Heritage Register. I'll put the motion on the, no, we don't have a motion.
We do?
Where?
We talked about this, had a delegation, and now you have to make your vote on it.
Oh, we do? Okay, I don't have a written motion, but let's hear from Mr. Simpson about the report, and then if we have a discussion, we can have a discussion. I don't have a motion. Should I have a motion?
If you don't have the motion in your package, Deputy Mayor Nix, I can read it out for you.
Okay. Did you want to discuss this report, Mr. Simpson, or tell us anything more than what you've written?
Council gave direction to have this removed from the Heritage Register during the previous
Yes.
meeting, and this bylaw puts council's previous direction into legal standing.
Oh, and the motion is in effect, right here in your report, even though I don't have one here. Okay. So I'll read the motion. That we introduce and give necessary readings to a bylaw to amend bylaw 2012-19 Heritage Register to remove 994192 Mono-Adjala Town Line, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed to the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? Mangtlo. Do I have a seconder? I'll second the motion. Okay, Counselor. No, you can second. Okay, I'll second it. That motion is now on the floor, and I'll entertain any discussion. Counselor Capes.
Get ready for this one.
Okay.
Recently, there has been some report in the Orangeville Citizen. It was very negative. There is no talk of the value of preserving our cultural heritage, and anyone who is British or has lived in the UK would wholeheartedly embrace heritage. Now, withstanding that Canada is young in terms of its settled history, we may not have the same appreciation of recognizing our heritage, culture, and the value of what some of that means. So I would like to just say, the Ontario Heritage Act requires the clerk of every municipality to keep a publicly accessible register of properties that are of cultural heritage value or interest situated in the municipality. Further, this also allows the municipality to include properties of cultural heritage value or interest that have not been designated in its municipal register. Including non-designated properties in this municipal register is a means to identify properties that have cultural heritage value or interest to the community. The municipal register is an important tool in planning for the conservation of heritage properties and provides interim protection from demolition. I'm not finished. The Municipal Act, the Ontario Municipal Heritage Act, gives the municipality the authority. Legislative obligation is, there is no legislated obligation to engage with the property owner, just to make that clear. The property this is for reasons for designating. The property has design value or physical value because it is rare, unique, representative of an early style or type, expression, or material of construction. I could read on, but there are lots of reasons for why we list our properties and register them to protect them, and why we then carry forward with designation. And this is important to preserving the story about what Mono is, who Mono is, and what we value. So it is important, and so therefore, I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Does anyone else on council want to speak to this motion? Yes, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Capes. Well, thank you for letting me speak, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for your comments. You were missed at the discussion, and I am not surprised by your comments. However, were you able to watch the very fulsome discussion that happened?
Councillor Capes, you may answer that.
I'm going to say no, but I was part of the previous discussions.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's a bind that the council found themselves in. We had a very good report from our Heritage Committee indicating that this should be designated, or stay on the register, and that for future designation possibly, it's just there's so much work to do, it's only on the register so far. Then we have a property owner to whom we are responsible, who, with great effort, and her realtor or mortgage broker was around as well, and we have a person who is in jeopardy, it certainly sounded like, and I don't think it was hyperbolic, in jeopardy of losing her property, and loves her property and appreciates what it is and so on, but at this juncture in time is in a financial bind and comes to us. And so I asked for clarification that, to remove from the register, number one, you have to trust, because the issue here is, oh, you're going to have a property owner who's going to demolish, and this is a problem, and so on. And that was not the feeling that came across about this property owner. And that given doing this now for her so that she can stay in this forever home of hers for a number of years, likely will stay in it long enough to be able, in the present rules that we have, you come off the register and then after X number of years, because it is a time thing, but that you could go back on and we could relook at designation. So that was why we came to it, not because that we do not appreciate or that this was a decision taken lightly. So, just to explain.
Before you speak, Councillor, yes, you may, but just in a second. I would like to compliment Councillor Davy on an excellent summary of our discussion and the dilemma we faced. Yes, Councillor Capes, you may speak now.
Thank you. And thank you for that. There would be no restriction on that property owner should they decide to want to designate that property themselves. So it's not that we have to wait any period of time to put it on the registry.
Okay.
That property owner could come forward at any time and say, I would like to designate this property. So there is no restriction there
Okay.
in that respect.
Does anybody else want to speak to this motion? Yes, Councillor Manktlow.
So, one, this is an excellent property to designate. Two, the owner made a convincing argument that she was unable to secure a mortgage, and council felt this was valid, and on that basis elected to agree to have the property removed, and I continue to support that.
Thank you, Councillor Manktlow. Last chance. Anybody want to speak to this motion? Does anybody want a recorded vote? No? Okay, it's not a recorded vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Against the motion? The motion passes 3-1. We're now up to Schedule A. I only have one person on council who's identified a number of items they want to speak to, but that doesn't stop the rest of you from speaking whenever you want. Mr. Simpson, do you, yes? Mr.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, is it possible, we will be going into camera at 10:30?
10:30.
Is it possible to have a 10-minute break before?
Good idea.
Oh, I was hoping we could get Schedule A discussed, but no, yeah, let's take a 10-minute break. So we reconvene at 10:25. to Ralph, and Ralph, you will take counsel in camera. Are we on time, Mr. Simpson?
With the exception that our legal counsel has not yet shown up.
Oh, I can sit down and finish my coffee. I don't want to start Schedule A. Yeah, I know.
That's what that's for, your online participants.
I know, I just, thank you, Mr. Dunmore. Well, my fear in starting Schedule A is I guess we could start it. Okay, we're up to Schedule A. Does anyone want to speak to any items on Schedule A? Counselor Capes. Sorry, Melinda, Capes has sent me an email.
Yes, I didn't do it by email.
Thank you. Thank you so much for recognizing me here. So on Schedule A, number 6, the Ministry of Environment expanding protected areas.
I can answer your question.
Excellent. Are there any in
Yes,
Mono?
is it 3 or 4 pieces of property are going to be attached to the Hockley Nature Reserve? However, I'm not sure what the effect of that is, because all of those properties that are being attached are already owned by, am I right, Mr. Dunmore? It really doesn't change anything.
Sometimes the Ministry of Government Services owns property, and sometimes the Ontario government, like they have multiple ownership names, and I would think they go into their property holdings company first, and then they get dedicated as parks, and that's really what they're doing here, is adding to the Hockley Nature Reserve.
So that answers your question. Your
Thank
next
you. And that
item.
doesn't have any impact on us in terms of
It has no impact on us.
maintenance and care and expense.
We don't do the maintenance and care
Okay.
and respect
Yeah.
of Hockley Nature Reserve. It's the Bruce Trail that does it.
Okay, that's very good. Now, there are a number of motions coming from other townships. I'll name them. Number 10, number 11, and number 12 that I would like to support with a letter. So that's
Well,
what
could
I
I
would
ask a
like to say.
question? I mean, if East Gary and Amaranth want to do something, wouldn't it be better if?
No, this, number 10 is
Oh.
to support free public health
Oh,
water testing,
yes,
which we should
yes.
never let that go.
I totally
Like,
agree.
And then number 11 is about the sustainability infrastructure funding.
Yes.
We should never let them off the hook for that. And then the other one is about wind turbine projects, and I really don't want to support any more of those in Dufferin County, but I definitely don't want them in Mono. So those are the ones that I
I'm
would
sorry,
like to support.
I jumped
Yes,
ahead.
know.
I jumped ahead.
Yes, that's okay.
All
So
right.
that's,
Yes, Councillor Mantlo.
I'm not sure whether this is up to date or not, but the last NBCA meeting I was at, they said that the ministry had withdrawn their phasing out program.
Of the well water, yeah.
Yeah,
That's old news.
They've withdrawn it?
yeah,
Oh, you're ahead of me. Oh, excellent, excellent. I didn't know that.
because we were about to make a motion too.
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right, that-
Jeff is on now.
Okay, then what I'm going to do is we will return to Schedule A at a later point, and I will pass the gavel to Ralph Mantlo, and I will go. Yes?
Deputy Mayor Nix, if you could please formally make your declaration of conflict of interest?
I have to find that piece of paper, don't I?
I think we need a motion to go into camera.
You do, but the clerk wants me to declare. Can't I just fill out the piece of paper and give it to you?
No, you must declare during the meeting.
Okay, I'm declaring an indirect conflict of interest. According to what the Integrity Commissioner advised me, the clerk says it's a conflict of interest. The reason being is I am a member of the Bruce Trail. I'm not in any authority, on any committee that makes decisions for the Bruce Trail, but I am a member, and the item you're going to discuss in camera has to do with the Bruce Trail. So is that my declaration? I will go and fill the form out, and Ralph is now sitting in the mayor's chair.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could I have a motion to go into camera? Motion by Councillor Capes. Second.
Yeah,
Yes.
So if I can put the motion on the floor for council's review, because it's a very specific and detailed motion. So
I
the
didn't
motion
receive it.
is that council move into a closed meeting pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended at 10:33 a.m. for parkland dedication, Section 239, 2E and F, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege.
Thank
So, if you could call for a mover and seconder?
Moved by Capes, seconder. Seconder by Davies, thank you. I see that Mr. Wilker is there. Do you? Oh, yes, sir. Anybody against moving into camera? It's passed.
And Andrew, can you confirm once we've passed this resolution in public. But Andrew,
We are
if you
back
s-
live.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Ralph, did you want me to read that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so council, the recommended resolution for rising from this in-camera session is as follows. That we rise from an in-camera session at 11:16 a.m. and that council accept the advice from the town solicitor and direct the town staff and the town solicitor proceed accordingly.
Moved by Davies, seconded by Cates. And, pardon?
All in favor?
No, any discussion?
Oh, no.
None? All in favor? Okay.
Okay, thank you. And if council will just give us a couple of minutes to give Deputy Mayor Nix time to return to chambers. Andrew, do you know if he's, can you see Deputy Mayor Nix?
Waving at the window, and I told him to come around.
I cannot right now.
I think he's coming. I don't know, I think he went around the front, but. Well done.
Deputized,
Mayor.
deputized deputy. Did you ever find that letter, Elaine? Did you find that letter?
But I'm looking at 11 later.
You,
I only have one more thing on Schedule A.
say again?
I have one more thing on Schedule A. And I'll be careful how I read it, how I say it.
You're out of in camera.
Yes, we are.
Hi, Jeff.
Deputy Mayor.
All right. Are you handing the gavel back to me?
Yes,
Thank
you've
you.
got it.
You have a motion, Elaine? Or somebody has a motion?
No, we have no motion.
We
We
did,
did the
No.
motion.
we did
Oh,
that
you-
all,
Wrote
but
it
now you
down.
want to go back into camera. So you
Sorry,
need a
did
motion.
you do the motion in public?
Out
Yes, we
in
did.
camera.
So I can read it?
Yes, you can.
Well, it's been read and it's entered into the public.
Okay, I will read it later. Now,
It's been read.
I'm going to move, we go back in camera. Do I have a mover and a seconder
I see for the next item.
for the next item?
If, Deputy Mayor Nix, if we could actually read the full motion out, if you don't have it in front of you, I can read it for you.
Oh, here it is. Here. Oh, there's a bunch of motions here. Well, I assume, okay, this is the motion you want. That council move into a closed meeting pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended at 11:20 a.m. Oh, I left my pen in the other room.
Here you are.
11:20 a.m. for Highway 9 Water Main Local Improvement, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Sure.
Capes and Manklow, all in favor? Fine, we're now moving in camera.
Okay.
So Andrew, you
Do
can,
need a pen?
yeah.
Andrew, if you public.
I need a pen.
We are back live.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome, members of the public. We're back live. I have a motion here that we rise from in-camera session at 11:29 a.m. and that council accept the advice from the town solicitor and direct the town staff and the town solicitor proceed accordingly. Do I have a mover? Capes, seconder, Davy, all in favor? Fine, that's passed. We're now back in public session. Thanks, Mike. And we were dealing with Schedule A. Unfortunately, the person who still had several items to discuss with us has to leave now. Is that,
My last comment was on number 13,
Yes.
but I think what I will do, instead of making that here, is I will attend the next county council meeting
Fine.
and ask them how they're going to deal with the behavior of one of their counselors. That was public.
yes, the information on that is that item 13 is a motion from county council on racism. And I think Elaine has some complaints about the behavior of an individual that she wants to take to county council. That's fine. So on Schedule A, let me find it. Does it? Yes. Thanks, Elaine. Does anyone? Yes.
Deputy Mayor, so I still have a question. There was item number 12. So there was a couple of ideas of passing resolutions. Items number 11 and 12, I take they're not being done then?
Well, 10 now is irrelevant, right?
Right, so 11 and 12, there will be no resolutions then on those two items today.
Well, no, but we've only heard from one councillor so far. So maybe we could hear from the rest of my.
Okay, by Elaine. Does any other member of council want to talk? Yes, Councillor Davy.
I have two items that I want to talk about, 11 and 14. So I can't necessarily speak to the wind turbine thing, though will. But for number 11, yes, I do think, you know, Calgary's having their water mains break. Like it's a countrywide infrastructure issue that I think, in the words of Councillor Manctolo, you know, we need to keep hopeful that by saying something, something's going to happen. So I would like to really make a formal addition to to make a resolution of
us
Mono.
to
Would
pass
you?
a motion supporting
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Do you,
All right.
does
Can
anybody else
The
think?
deputy write down that motion? And the motion is that we support the resolution from East Garifraxa.
So if I may propose a resolution for council's consideration, Deputy Mayor Nix, that council for the town of Mono supports and endorses the resolution by the township of East Garifraxa and Hastings County regarding sustainable infrastructure funding for small rural municipalities, and further that this resolution be sent to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier, and the Honorable Sylvia Jones, MPP for Dufferin-Caledon.
May we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Davy, Councillor Manctolo, all in favor? Fine, that's passed. Now, Councillor Davy, did you have another item to talk?
I do. So then we should close the loop on a discussion with respect to the wind turbines, just because this is an older resolution timing-wise, and then this morning, the announcement that, you know, green energy is going to be, so as my vote would be or my suggestion would be, instead of just blanketly opposing this, which was Elaine's, or approving it, yes, approving it to oppose wind things, is to maybe that there's something afoot, and so let's keep our ears to the ground and maybe something will come as, with the green energy new announcement from the government.
That's right. And quite frankly, as much as I respect East Garifraxa on this motion, I would have trouble supporting a blanket ban on wind turbines. I mean,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
thought too. Okay.
So we'll skip over that item. Yeah, you had another one,
And then my
Councillor Davy?
last one, thank you, is item 14, just to say, and to you and our mayor, who sit on Dufferin Council, that it was nice to see that the Dufferin Council is officially resolved to join the fight to get Highway 10 under control. Just the other day, going down to Toronto, there were 2 accidents that stopped me, but going in both directions. It's like drivers need to do better, and I don't know how to make that happen, but we need more people involved. So thanks for that. That was
Good.
all.
Councillor Manklow, did you have any items on Schedule A?
I did. Thank you. I do. I'm wondering about the resolution between Amaranth and East Garafraxis, if this has any implications for us, or is there anything we should be discussing? This sounds like a pretty major proposal that might be in the works. Does anybody have any thoughts about it?
Well, my thought on it is whatever East Garafraxa and Amaranth want to do, I don't really think we should weigh in on it. I mean, I think that's their business. I know from talking to East Garafraxa, I'm going to remember, they've got 2,400 residents. They've got 4 bridges over the Grand River. There's no way they can afford that. Amaranth is probably in a bit better position, but if they want to talk about joining forces as one municipality, I think we should let them do it, and more power to them. So my suggestion would be we just keep silent on this issue. Let them discuss it. Yes, Councillor Davey.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Manklow, I suppose the ultimate is that if a couple of the municipalities in the county amalgamate and things look good, then, okay, bigger's better. And I mean, there may be down the road way, but yeah, right at the minute when they're just in talks, I don't know that it does really make a difference to us.
And the history here is to go back 20, 25 years ago when the province did try to reorganize various counties, and they reorganized Simcoe County, so that's where you get Adjala to Sorrento. My understanding is largely due to John Creelman, who was the mayor at the time, and held a meeting at the Ag Center that had over 700 people. The province threw their hands up about Dufferin County, but at the time, the proposal was, I'm pretty sure, I'm going on memory, East Gary and Amaranth, and then Mono and Mulmer would join together, just like Adjala to Sorrento did. But that possibility, lest you go back that far, you remember this, they eventually just abandoned it. So maybe East Gary and Amaranth are picking up where we left off 20 years ago. I don't know. Does staff want to weigh in on this issue?
Deputy Mayor, this is fresh. The CAOs haven't had a meeting since the release of this, and I'm sure that we will hear more from the CAOs of Amaranth and East Garafraxa.
Thank you, Mr. Dunmore. All right, anybody else have any items on Schedule A? Then I have a motion. Yeah, I know, but I gotta find it. No. Well. Okay, I have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Yes. All in favor? Yes. That motion passes. Awesome. I couldn't do it without your draft motion, Mr. Simpson. We now are down to reports from staff, and let me start with council. Does anyone on council have a report? Yes, Councillor Davey.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. We've had a few events going on. The one just a couple of days ago, Mono Melodies on Sunday. It was a terrific turnout. Missed you all there, but it was our Mono Melodies 2.0, so we're gonna do it again next summer. We had 5 acts. They were terrific. It poured rain, but because we have this awesome facility, because it was supposed to be, picnic in the park. Because we have this fabulous, they brought it inside. The performers themselves set up. We ended up turning Menorah Park or the pavilion into a concert hall, and there was 50 people in the audience. It was a terrific event. So thank you to the RAC who helped organize that, but really to Emma Holmes and to they had a wedding in the building the day before, so they came and cleaned it all out. It was all just awesome. And so, in our next, of course, our next recreation is going to be the Harvest Euchre and our Halloween party, right, as we move into autumn. So look for those in your newsletters. So then, with respect to committees, I'm on, the Shelburne District Fire Board. We've been having quite a few meetings as we're moving closer to finalizing a new chief, so there'll be news coming about that soon. And on the CDRC, we're working on the winter programming and the camps and the swimming lessons, and I know that we have a movement afoot on council to increase the amount of swimming access we have in the town, but we really already have a terrific facility that's just bustling, and all the kids are happy, and it's terrific. We went to, the other thing, we went to on Sunday or Saturday to Mrs. D's new restaurant in Mono. So I hope everybody tries out their restaurant. It's on Highway 10. Slow down on Highway 10 and pull in for a snack instead of creating an accident by whipping through our town. That would be my, for some roti. And one here that I can't read my writing on. Oh, yeah, well, just about the citizen engagement thing, that today in the meeting that we've added about the bylaws, and we're talking about doing the citizen engagement, just a comment that I have noticed that the resident input is increasing. We had people in the audience here today. Facebook groups are so it's our message is getting, and all those 5 questions, our message is getting out that that we are wanting input from the residents, and so I wanted to comment on that. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Davy. Councillor Manklow, other than climbing a mountain, have you anything to report?
I had a very good time sailing and climbing mountains. We have, the Pollinator Group has a private donation, and it has been used to develop a new mound. It's called the Boomerang Mound, which is a raised area in the southern portion of the Pollinator Garden. And it will feature a wooden carved statue, which was carved by, I've just forgotten his name. He's the guy who does all the carving here in town.
Oh, terrific. I don't know his name, but good.
Anyway, it's completed, and we're, with the assistance of the Public Works, who've dug a hole into the deep clay, we're going to install it on Thursday, and we'll have an unveiling. That hasn't actually been decided yet, but the unveiling will be done to recognize the contribution of from the 2 private people.
Good. Anything else?
No, that's it.
I don't think I have anything particular to report. Councillor Davy has mentioned we will be having an announcement about the new fire chief at Shelburne, hopefully very soon. And I was at the opening of Mrs. D's also. The staff, starting with Mr. Dunmore, or who wants to start? Oh, with Matt. Starting with Matt. All the fingers are pointing.
Les? Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just quickly, top course, we managed to get the top course asphalt on 3rd line north of Hockley
It's
there
beautiful.
last week.
Beautiful.
So happy to get that wrapped up, and shouldering should take place in the coming days. Preventative maintenance, crack sealing sealing program started today west of the Highway 10, and hopefully wrap that up by the end of next week. Speed hump removals, they'll be pulled in the coming weeks as well at the 4 locations in preparation for winter. Storm pond maintenance, we're working away at that, all the ponds right now, trying to get those tidied up for winter as well, fall. And that's about it for me.
Who wants to go next on staff? They're each pointing at each other. Mr. Dunmore.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So on July 24th, Mayor Creelman and Deputy Mayor Nix, myself, and Lisa Ashton from the Treasury Department participated in the Dufferin County Economic Development Strategy in the basement here. It was a good session. I felt it was good. Not well attended, but well attended by Mono staff. So, like I had said to council before, I think the bulk of our manufacturing sector had attended some of the Orangeville sessions, which were all meant to be in the same envelope. So we definitely got the beauty of Mono is, I think, being as our top priority in protection of the environment. Our strategic plan, I think, the environmental side of it stayed. So just thanks to council for continuing to support. Council is aware we're down a director of recreation, a director of planner, a public works manager, and one admin staff. And we actually have another admin staff who's only able to work from home right now with a leg injury. So your support while we backfill these positions is appreciated.
Can we
And,
ask a question on that?
Yes, you may.
When are you planning to post any jobs, particularly director of planning? Not the director of recreation, clearly, but for some of these shortcomings, are you planning to hire people?
So recreation will be back, as we are aware. Public Works, we're mapped out to applications on those, and we're working through that process.
And this is your second round on that. The first round wasn't
Correct,
successful.
correct. The admin position is out now,
okay.
closing at the end of August. The planning services for the town of Mono will be working through that over the next couple months.
Does that mean hiring or working with a consultant?
Working through the provision of the planning services. We have a bunch of things that are required, an official plan amendment, update, sorry. We're waiting on the county MCR to be finalized, which we believe is in the final stages. And the zoning bylaw should have a comprehensive amalgamation and review right now as well. So over the next couple months, I'll be definitely letting council know where we're heading with planning services.
Okay, you continue with your list. Thank you.
That's all that's coming to mind right now. Thanks.
Yeah, Councillor Mankler has a question.
To be specific on planning services, are you trying to hire a planner?
So we're looking to ensure that the services come across in a good, proficient way for the residents. So that will include either a planner or a consultant, or a mix of both. So as I work through that, I'll be sure to inform council where we're heading on that.
How does the consultant work?
So we're using consultants right now.
Right.
And they write the same reports that they're registered planners. So with our front line service comes through our planning technician, and we utilize consultants to write reports and to provide information, and that's being funded through, and those are always being funded through the application fee process.
Is that it, Councillor Mankler?
Yes, sir.
Who have I got left? Mr. Simpson or Mr. Haluka? Who wants to go? Nothing? Mr. Haluka? Nothing? Well, then I have a motion that we introduce, give the necessary reading to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Mono in Session 13-2024, held on 20 August 2024, that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Anyone opposed? That motion carries. And now I have a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 11:45 a.m. Do I have a mover? Do I have a seconder? Carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Andrew.